All right. Let's see here. Let's see here. We're going to take Gradey Dick. Definitely. So we already have our point guard of the future. We chose you chose Asar, right? Right, perfect. So and they have a brilliant front court already. I think that Gradey Dick just boosts that. You got Paulo, you got Franz Wagner. Now you have Asar Thompson, and now you have one of the best shooters in the draft. This guy can spot up and shoot for you. Yeah, I think Gradey Dick really is he could fit on any team because the skills that he has and the attributes, every team is looking for a guy who's 6'8", 200 plus pounds, who can be a spot up shooter for you. And Gradey Dick is that. Like, he is the spot up shooter. He's great with catch and shoot. He's not bad off the dribble. Yeah, I think that he'd be a perfect pick for Orlando, who really, I don't believe they did very well in the 3-point category
Terribly.
last year.
I think they were 27th in the NBA.
Yeah, that's
something like that.
God awful. Why not get a guy who can shoot the three for you and help space the floor? That's really what they're going to be needing if they want to try to make that jump to the playoffs.
It's definitely who I would take if I was Orlando's front office. And to be honest, if he's here at 11, I think it's a lock. There's a lot to like about Dick. He plays, he got 14 points per game, and he was doing that off the ball. And so he doesn't need to be a primary ball handler. You have that in Wagner. You have that in Paolo Banchero. He'd be a great addition.
And all of a sudden, your team, if you are the Magic, is really big and really athletic. You got Asar, who's 6'7". You have Dick, he's 6'8". I'm not sure how big Paulo is, but I know he's at least 6'8". And I know Franz is also above 6'8" as well. That's a massive team. And when you look at the formula this year, especially for the Denver Nuggets, who just won the NBA Finals, how did they do it? Size and length, baby. They were just bigger than Miami. And Miami just couldn't do anything about it. So Michael Porter Jr. is 6'10". Aaron Gordon is 6'10". Jokic is 7 feet. Jamal Murray is 6'3", 6'4". They're just a bigger team.
He's heavy. He's like 215.
Yeah.
Big guy.
So I think that if Orlando tries to follow that exact same formula, they could see themselves having a lot of not just regular season success, but enter the postseason for the first time as well.
And I think they are trying to win sooner than later. They were really close to making the play-in this past season. I could see them making the play-in this season, or being the 8th seed, And I think Dick would be a fine addition.
Yeah, Paulo's going to take a nice jump. He definitely is.
Well, moving on, we've got Oklahoma City, who just has a multitude of draft picks. They've got a great core with them, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Chet Holmgren is coming back. Josh Giddey. You've got Jalen Williams, who was a runner-up Rookie of the Year. And so for this pick, I'm going to be taking Taylor Hendricks out of the UCF. I think Hendricks, he has a little bit of variance. I could see him going as high as 6 in the draft. And I don't really see him dropping any lower than this. I think there's a lot to like about Taylor Hendricks. I think a lot of teams would like him as well. He, I believe on the year, shot around 50, 40, 80 as a power forward, which is incredible. And, some people might say, well, he wasn't playing against the best players, best prospects. He was in a smaller conference. But I think that you see a ton of guys come from these types of conferences and just explode onto the scene. I see that from him. I think that he would be a great fit with OKC, playing alongside Holmgren. And they already are pretty guard heavy. We see Jalen Williams. I think Dort, he plays a bit of the forward. He plays the shooting guard. You've got Giddey. You've got Shai. So you probably don't want to have a lottery pick be another guard who's not going to be seeing many minutes. But He's somebody I really like. What do you think of him, Doc?
Yeah, I think that he brings the defensive prowess that OKC is going to need if they want to make that next jump. Him and Chet Holmgren too in the front court. Oh my. Chet Holmgren. People are sleeping on Chet, but Chet is going to be a hell of a defender. I promise you that. He anchors the defense, and then you have a guy like Taylor Hendricks who can not just space the floor, but is going to get you some blocks too. Oh my gosh. OKC they're going to be a problem moving forward. They definitely are, especially in the next couple of years.
I definitely think that it's a really good fit for OKC, who has reported, like we mentioned before, that they really like Coulibaly. But if Coulibaly's not in the equation right now, I think that they would definitely go after a big man. And if Hendricks is on the board, he is a great fit.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, what's our next pick here?
13th.
Ooh, the Raptors. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go with the safe pick, especially because Fred VanVleet is leaving and going into free agency. Obviously, Jalen Hood-Schifino. Give me that guy. I think Jalen Hood has great size. I think that he has flashes of brilliance in terms of passing, and I think that he has a lot of upside with his development. I think that he could be their point guard of the future. Yeah, that's definitely the guy I want to take, especially if you have OG and Pascal are still on the team. Yeah, I think that he's a perfect ball handler for those kind of guys. And he gives you a lot of size and athleticism that Fred didn't really have. No offense to Fred. I love VanVleet's game. But Jalen Hood-Schifino, he's going to be something. He is. Definitely.
There's a lot of interesting buzz around Hood-Schifino. Just looking at the Raptors, like I mentioned before, they would probably want to get Coulibaly if he's up. If he's not up, I think that they might want to get Cason Wallace, as there were reports that he worked out with both Toronto and with Washington and then canceled the rest of the workouts. And so I think that's something to consider. With Hood-Schifino, though, there's been some really interesting reports. Recently, we've seen on mock drafts him just skyrocket. There's a ton of variants, but as of recent, we've seen ESPN. There's Jonathan Givony had him high for ESPN in the top 10. Gary Parrish of CBS Sports had him 8. And this is before, we hadn't really seen anything like this. It's just like, why is he going so high? He's typically projected 16 to 18. But Gary Parrish on a podcast recently spoke about this. He was saying that he was talking with an agent, just an NBA agent, I think, for one of the teams. And the agent said, I don't know where you're getting this intel. I really like your board. There's a guy on there. He's talking with Gary Parrish. There's a guy on there that you have that nobody else has in their top 10. And I don't know where you're getting your intel from, but he's definitely going in the top 10. And if you take a look at Gary Parrish's, Jalen Hood-Schifino is basically the only guy that is in the top 10 that most people don't really have. And so there's maybe a bit of credence to the fact that this guy's big. He has a good jump shot. He's a good passer. I could see him developing into somebody like a Jamal Murray. If that'd be a great situation. And so there's a lot to like about this guy. I could see him going 13. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun of running these mock drafts, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. Who are you taking next? Is it the Pels?
It's the Pels. And we have heard reports that the Pelicans are looking to trade up in the draft, maybe to try and get that top 3 pick. We've heard that they might even trade, Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson, which would be absolutely crazy. Maybe if you're Portland or Charlotte, you got to take up that offer. I think Ingram would be a great fit with anybody. He's just an absolute stud of a player. And so maybe It looks like New Orleans is trying to do a bit of a rebuild. Maybe they're looking for a guard. If they can't get Scoot, they might want to go with somebody else, somebody who has, a lot of potential that could play maybe alongside McCollum or replace McCollum. And for that, I'm going to be going with a guy by the name of Kobe Buffkin.
Ooh. Okay. I like it. There's a lot to like about Kobe Buffkin.
There's a lot to like about Buffkin. Buffkin, it said he was listed at 6'4", but that is him without shoes. He's actually around 6'5", about 185, 190. And so something to love about Buffkin is that he is the guy that just knows how to get buckets. When he was given the primary ball responsibilities, he was able to score at a high clip. I mean, just look at these numbers. He is seen as a pretty decent defender, very athletic in that sense where he's getting shot blocks. He's tall, lengthy. He's shooting 48% field goal, 85% free throw. That's something that really sticks out to me as a guy who has a really nice touch. And he's somebody that I would love on my team. I think that he could play both the shooting guard and the point guard positions. I think you could develop him into a point guard. He's shown that when he was a primary ball handler for Michigan, he was just able to tear it up and be a really great player. What do you think of him?
I like him a lot. I think that his best quality is his ability to beat people off the dribble. Like, he's such a fast first step, and it's just a great move. And I think people are sleeping on that kid. You actually were the one who brought Kobe Buffkin to the table and brought him to my attention. And I was like, oh man, like, this kid has something. And then also look at those stats too. 85 from free throw. Okay, so that's going to improve to 90 at some point. 48, 36. Excuse me. This kid has the potential to be a 50, 40, 90 kind of player. He's efficient. He's super efficient. And if you put him around more shooters, I mean, can you imagine the pick and roll with a healthy Zion and Kobe Buffkin? Oh my gosh.
That'd be sweet.
That would be crazy. And then you have Ingram. I mean, you can run the pick and roll with Ingram too. And then you have, CJ. That's it. You have CJ sitting in the corner waiting like that. He would be a great fit for the Pels. And
the future.
I just don't see them moving up in this draft. They would have to give up Brandon Ingram. I don't think that Zion Williamson's stock is very high right now, not because of what's happening in his personal life. Honestly, I don't really give a shit about that. I know you don't either. There's a lot of, I mean, you've seen the reports, like, he likes his ladies. It is what it is. What I care about is the fact that this kid can't play more than 30 games per season. Like, he has so much potential, and like, full circle, this is what I'm talking about when I say young athletes need to avoid sipping their own Kool-Aid and buying into their own hype. Zion was touted as one of the greatest prospects ever as well. And what has happened? He has turned out to be great when he plays, when you can get him to play. And then when he's talking about being physically healthy, but he's going to play when he feels like Zion. Look, get this kid with a sports psychologist. Okay? Figure out what's going on, because he's too valuable for this kind of crap to be going on. But until then, I mean, I don't think Zion fetches you the third pick or second pick or really anything like that. I just can't see his stock rising until we can actually see him on the floor next year consistently.
Well, I personally could see him, if they were willing to trade Zion for the third pick, I think I think Portland or Charlotte would be willing to take the swing on him. You definitely have a lot of merit,
man.
Yeah. If I'm one of those teams, he has proven that he's an incredible player, that he's an NBA starter or all-star starter, all NBA player if he's able to stay on the court.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Issues. I know. Here's the thing though, is a lot of these guys
for longer than 20 games.
A lot of these guys who are coming into the NBA, they haven't even set foot, in an NBA game on an NBA court. We're just assuming they're going to be great. He has proven that he's great. He does have a lot of off things about him that you don't like, which is why maybe they might trade him. But if I'm somebody like Portland or Charlotte, I could definitely see them doing it. I would not be surprised if New Orleans wanted to trade Zion for one of these picks. I could see them doing it. And I could see New Orleans wanting more out of it than just a third or second pick. They might want another rotation piece or something like that. We're forgetting this guy's an animal.
Yeah, he's an animal when he plays, for sure. But I mean, if I'm Portland or the Hornets or Charlotte, I'm telling New Orleans to kick rocks. I don't want Zion Williamson. You guys can't even do anything with him. I want Brandon Ingram. If you put Brandon Ingram on the table, now we're talking. Because I think him, regardless of what others might say, I think BI next to Dame, and you find a way to retain Jeremy Grant, all of a sudden you have a starting lineup of guys who are all averaging over 20 points per game. Okay? Think about that. That's like Golden State Warriors kind of stuff. Dame's getting you 30. Let's say it falls to 28. Whatever. Anthony Simons is going to get you 22. He did last year. You have Ingram. Ingram gets you like 25. Jeremy Grant gets you 20.
It's a great team.
Starting for getting you more than 20 points per game. That is a team that can compete with Denver.
Oof. I don't know about that one. I think Denver's just absolutely loaded, both with their starters and their guys off the bench. But they're definitely a playoff team if they get Ingram.
I think they're a championship contending team if they get Ingram. And barring injury as well, because even though Dame had like an incredible season, like he got hurt, So as long as these guys stay healthy and you add BI to Portland, okay, then I'd fish you the third pick. But not for Zion. No way, man.
Well, the only issue I have with that one is none of these guys have proven themselves really in the playoffs other than Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard's a playoff superstar, but if you throw Anthony Simons in the second round of the playoffs, or maybe even Ingram, I don't know. I mean, Ingram just showed this season that he wasn't able to, pull them into the play-in, or rather pull them into like a playoff seed. And so I love Ingram. I would want Ingram on my team. I think that'd be a great pick or a great trade rather for Portland. However, I think you have to give him at least a couple years to develop that synergy and maybe see what these guys are made of in the playoffs.
See, but BI has made the playoffs before. It was last year, right? I guess 2 years now since the season's over. Man, I just think that BI would be perfect next to Dame. I really do.
It would be. It'd be awesome.
I think that is the elite shooting forward that you're looking for if you're Portland. Like that dude is like, you can just give him the ball. Like all the stress that's taken off of Dame. Just like, here, Anthony, you go get it. I'm going to set BI up. Jeremy Grant's doing his thing. That team is competing. That team is smashing whoever they see in the first round. They're moving to the Western Conference Finals, at least in my opinion. All right, is it the Hawks, and it's my turn. Mm-hmm. All right, this one I think is an easy one, honestly. Maybe it's not.
They have been reported, with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, that maybe one of those guys will leave.
Yeah, I saw reports that they're kind of looking at shopping DeJounte because I think
crazy.
It is. They gave up so much for him too, but his contract is up after next year. So, and you know how Quinn Snyder is. Quinn likes to have roster autonomy. So there must have been something that he didn't like about Murray's game, or else we wouldn't even be talking about it. So you got to find a good replacement for him. And I'm not really worried about offensive production at this point as much as I'm worried about anchoring our defense. So give me Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace is a safe bet. He's going to have to move to the 2, but the reason I want him is because he's a perimeter defender, and he's going to defend the hell out of off the ball. You know what I mean? Like, he's also a very NBA ready player, in my opinion. And, you know, like, you need some defensive stoppers if you're the Hawks. And I think that Cason Wallace really fits that bill for what they're going to be looking for. You know, it was interesting to see the change in play from Clint Capella, and just how the Hawks also started to increase their shooting numbers in terms of the three. That is Quinn Snyder's system. And, you know, a lot of our viewers and listeners might be thinking, why didn't you try to get a guy who can shoot the three? Because the Hawks were actually like not the worst 3-point shooting team, but they took the least amount of 3-pointers than any other team in the NBA, which is interesting because they have Trae Young. But you guys need to get defensive stoppers. Like, I know Quinn. I watched him coach for 5 years here in Utah. He likes his defense. He likes his threes. Cason Wallace is going to be that player who leaves it out on the court every single night and just defends the hell out of the ball. And that will open up and give Trae a lot more opportunities as well. Plus, he's not a bad catch and shoot three guy.
He's good. I think there's a lot to like about Cason. I think it'd be pretty funny if he fell to 15, given the fact that
this has been an interesting mock draft.
He was supposed to work out with Atlanta, but he canceled on them about a week or two ago. So wouldn't it be funny if he fell to them? But I do think that this guy will go higher, but he would be a steal if he goes and falls around 15 to the 16 range. He did come in a little smaller than what people were listing him at. He's without shoes, something like 6'2.5, so he's probably something like 6'3 with shoes on.
Right.
Maybe closer to 6'4, I guess, so they rounded up for him. But he's still, he's pretty hefty. Like, he's a big buff guy, and so he's definitely going to be a good defender in the league. And you know what they say about Kentucky guards is that they typically trend to be very good players in the NBA. We've seen guys like
Tyler Hero,
Maxey, Tyler Hero. We've seen Devin Booker, who only averaged 10 points per game, and now he's an absolute stud. So who knows about this guy?
Yeah, Kentucky has a great program. I think that goes without saying. They always find a way to strike gold. And it would be very ironic if Mr. Wallace fell to the Hawks, but that's where he did in our scenario. I shook everything up by taking Coulibaly.
So this is a fun one for me. For the 16th pick, I am a Utah Jazz fan, and so I care a lot about this pick. I'll just tell you right now, there have been reports that the Utah Jazz are trying to trade their 16 and 28th pick to get a little bit higher up, maybe back end of the lottery, maybe something 10 to 14 around that range to try and pick somebody up. And Tony Jones of The Athletic, he's a staple here in Utah. He has mentioned that a few months back, he mentioned that the Utah Jazz are looking for lengthy people, specifically maybe lengthy guards. And Justin Zanuck, who's the GM, as well as Danny Ainge, they've mentioned that at pick 9, they're looking probably for the best available player. They don't really care too much about fit, just as well if it's like the best guy there, they're going to take him. If he's just like a really good athletic player. But I think at 16, we might see, somebody who really fits with maybe the other draft pick or with the team overall. And the Jazz are probably looking for a point guard or a power forward. And with Coulibaly, he's a 6'6 to 6'8 guy. He's probably going to be playing the 3, maybe the 2. And with this one, I think they're going to take a guard. There's a few guards that are left up that are just too promising. It's really tough for me, but the reports are saying about the Utah Jazz that they really like Keyonte George. And I personally love Nick Smith, and I think that guy's going to be a stud. But I think just given the reports that we've heard from Mark Stein, from Rafael Barlow, that they want Keyonte George, they might try and trade up because they don't think that he's going to be available at that time. maybe at 16. I think that I've seen him at the start of the year. You can ask Doc. I have just been touting him when in his high school days.
That's your boy.
He is just an explosive player. I heard there were some reports that he lost some weight at his pro day during the combine. You could see he was slimmer, maybe a little bit more agile. And Rafael Barlow, he had an interview, or he spoke with Keyonte, and Keyonte said that he dropped about 10 to 15 pounds from his college. And so you could kind of see in college he was a little bit slower than he was in high school, and he's starting to rise up boards a little bit. Apparently he's doing pretty well in workouts. He's just a knockdown shooter. He's a bucket getter. And I've heard, Doc, that on his pro day, he was doing the pro day workouts as a point guard. And so I think the Utah Jazz would love this fit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of upside to Mr. George, AG. Look, he is in the Baylor history books for most 20-point games and most threes made as a freshman. Those two stats right there are incredible to me. I think that he's a slippery guard. He knows how to score. I think that he's a decent defender. He plays with a lot of energy. But the point of basketball is to score more than your opponent. You know, Keyonte George has zero issues as a scorer. I think that the areas of his game that he could develop would be ball handling. If he turns into a point guard, look out, because that kid has all-star potential. Absolutely. I could see him being a 20-point per game guy, you know, and as long as he figures out his court vision, like, this kid is going to be a steal for whoever takes him. I love Keyonte.
Well, you're next, my man.
All right. Let's see here. Ooh, the Lakers. Okay.
Are they building for the future, or are they going to try and get somebody that can help them win now?
Well, I think we already know the answer to that. They're definitely going to try to find a impactful player who can get it done now. And in my opinion, I think the best guy for their team. Ooh, this is difficult, because I can't see a world where they keep D'Lo. I think that they will at all costs retain Reeves and Hachimura. I could see them moving Reeves to the 1 as well. You know what? Give me Leonard Miller. Leonard Miller, 19 years old, 6'10". He's played in the G League. He doesn't get a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Exposure, I guess, in the spotlight, because he's playing alongside Scoot Henderson. But when Scoot went out, there was during the games where they played against the Metro 92, Leonard put up 16 and 9 versus Wembanyama. He's a pretty decent passer. He has massive hands. He has a 7'3" wingspan. These, once again, are his stats based off of 36 minutes. But he was putting up 18 and 10 in the G League against grown men and guys who are trying to claw their way into or back to the NBA. I think that he's a very cerebral player. For, his free throw is great for a big man. You put him next to Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis could move to the 4 if he wanted to. And Leonard Miller is big enough to where he can play the 5. He's not the best three-point shooter, but I think that is something he can absolutely develop. And you would have a massive front court in LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Leonard Miller. Especially, and then you can move Reeves. You can even have this guy coming off the bench if you want him to, replacing AD's minutes. But I think that there's a lot of upside. I think people are sleeping on Leonard Miller a lot. I think that this guy can be a hellacious defender too. There's just a lot to like about this dude. I think he would be a steal for the Lakers, and he would impact the game right now and definitely contribute to them winning.
The only concern I have there is that 30% 3-point percentage. However, I really like his game. I think with LeBron as well, being the facilitator that he is, and even Austin Reeves, who's a great pick and roll player, he would probably get a lot of touches. And a lot of people forget that this guy, while Scoot Henderson was out, played a lot of point guard games. He's essentially a point forward, and before coming into the G League, I think he was a point guard, and he just had this huge growth spurt. It's very reminiscent of Anthony Davis, if you ask me, because I think he had a similar thing happen to him. But I really like Leonard Miller. I would be, if I were a Laker fan, well, I am a Lakers fan, but if I were the Lakers front office, I'd love to get Miller.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, he had multiple 30-point games after Scoot went out. So not only does he know how to play on a team and understand his role, but he also is showing that he can step up in big moments. There's a lot of upside to Leonard Miller. People should not be sleeping on that guy. When you have the same hand size as Kawhi Leonard, like that means something. Like, that's like Shaq hands. You know what I mean? That's insane. So I love Leonard.
I do too. For the 18th pick, it's kind of a toss-up. I think that Miami really likes shooting. As you can see, the way they've really drafted over the years. I'm going to give them, in my opinion, the best player available. That's Nick Smith Jr. There's a lot to like about Nick Smith. There is, as a lot of you guys know, Nick Smith is a guy who didn't have the best college year. He was basically injured throughout most of the year, having some left knee problems, playing in and out of rotations, things like that. But when he played, he had really high highs and really low lows. A lot of you guys might remember, if you don't know, during March Madness, he had really terrible games, which dropped his stock dramatically. But I'm still sold on the way that he played in high school. He was basically the number one recruit in the country, and he was averaging upwards of like 25 points, 7 assists. He was just a really great player, and there was a span with Arkansas as well, I think 6 or 7 games where he was averaging upwards of 20 points. And so the skill is there. I think he has a lot of promise. He's a risky bet, which I think a lot of people think, but I think he trends more towards being a good player rather than being a bust. I really like Nick Smith Jr. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, I love Nick Smith. 6'5", 6'9" wingspan. He's super athletic, has a great floater. You're right. He just never got a chance to like really get his feet under him playing for Arkansas. But there's a lot to like there in high school. 25 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, almost a triple double.
Amazing.
Yeah. He's a great finisher. He's a competitor. He just is. Like, Arkansas actually tried to shut him down when he got hurt, and he said, "No, let me play." So the kid wants to win. I love that too. Like, he's gritty. He can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. You can put him at the 1. You can put him at the 2. Yeah. I think Nick Smith is going to be. I think he's going to be an all-star one day. I really see that. He just has that kind of upside. He's a boomer bust kind of guy, but there's a lot to like about Nick Smith Jr. All right, Golden State. Oh, if this team is just in turmoil, I'll tell you what, with all these massive contracts. Oh, man. Let's see here. Golden State. I'm really interested to see what they do during the offseason with how the new CBA is going to be affecting roster construction. But I'm going to go with best available, and I'm going to go with Jordan Hawkins. He is basically the same size as Klay Thompson. He's a shooting guard, one of the best catch and shoot guys in the college game. He really dominated with UConn. I mean, we saw what UConn did during March Madness. They crushed everybody. He is a little bit older, but he has the stats you're looking for if you're trying to, let's say, move on from Klay Thompson, or you're trying to build a very potent backcourt of the future. Jordan Hawkins is a great place to start. He is going to get you, look at that, like 16, 3, 1 assist. His shooting numbers were great, though, and that fits the mold of Golden State. They're going to need guys who can shoot. And honestly, like, I don't really know. This is not a report or anything. This is just my personal opinion. I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to keep this core together because of how much they're paying these guys and how the new CBA really is. I was listening to a podcast by Brian Windhorst, the Hoop Collective, shameless plug right there. But he was actually talking about how the owners of Golden State, of the Warriors, sold a piece of the arena off just so they could pay for the team. So, this team is going to be making, the payroll is going to be over $500 million when you add in all of the tax you got to pay for these guys. I just don't see any way for Golden State to not move on from a few of their players. If that's Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, a couple guys are going to get moved. They have to if they want to continue to keep a good core around Steph Curry. So I think that starts with Jordan Hawkins too. I think that while Jordan Hawkins is not nearly as good as Klay Thompson, that's not what I'm saying. I think that Steph Curry brings out the best in the guys he plays next to. Look what they did with Wiggins. No one ever really thought Wiggins could shoot the three like that until he went to Golden State. I think that, and look at Jordan Poole. He's another example. He was a late first round pick, if I'm not mistaken. And he turned out to be an incredible six-man for them. Steph Curry understands how to bring the best out of his team. I think if you put Jordan Hawkins next to Steph Curry, maybe let's say you do move on from Klay Thompson, hypothetically. So you move Jordan Poole up to the 2, and then Jordan Hawkins can be your six-man. But he's going to get you some wild production. That's for sure. I have a lot of faith in Jordan Hawkins. What do you think?
A lot of people regard him as the best shooter in college, or the best shooter in the draft, and he very well could be. I mean, the way that he's able to shoot off ball, be able to go around a pick and shoot a three, it's going to transition very smoothly to the NBA. And like you said before, I think that Golden State could bring a lot out in him. And I think that given the fact with the CBA rules and how this Golden State Warriors team, their era might be coming to an end, they might be really considering who they want for this future. And I think that he would be a steal out. What is it, 19?
I believe so.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Full Court Press NBA podcast. For the full podcast,